Welcome back to Shall We Say It? I'm here, Valentina, with my usual co-host, Einstein.
Yo.
And today's topic is inspired by Einstein's wife, shockingly. But we're going to be talking about the movement Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, and Blue Lives Matter. I'm going to start this out only because, why not? Hey, let's just jump right into it. So, we all know how the Black Lives Matter started. It all started based off the Trayvon Martin and all of the things that went down within that summer with Black lives and being killed, and people not really caring and not spending enough time in the media on these deaths. It was something that was a big deal. It was another push for civil rights within our country. And that was pretty much something came back, some backlash came back, and two movements started based off the Black Lives Matter. That would be the All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter movement. Now, I will give my greatest opinion of all of it. Now, it's simple. We all know all lives matter. That's plain and simple. Everyone knows that. I don't know why it has to be stated. I don't know why it's a concern, because to this point in history, white lives always matter. They've always had privilege. They did in the past. They still do. Nothing has changed. They still don't get pulled over and have the same punishment as a black person. I'm not saying this to be harsh. I'm saying this because it's statistically true. I can have my own examples, but I'm not going to go into that. I'll go into that a little bit later on just the difference between being pulled over as a white person and being pulled over as a black person. The Black Lives Matter movement is saying Black Lives Matter too. Not that they're more important, that they're just as important as a white life, and they should be treated just like a white life or an Asian life or whatever life you want to throw out there. Gay, whatever. That is what it boils down to. Now let's go to the Blue Lives Matter. Do I think police officers' lives matter? Yeah. My uncle's pretty much works in the force. He's pretty much at the top of what he does. His life is endangered every day. But this is what I'm also going to say. It's a choice. Your occupation is a choice. What you decide to do with your life and how you decide to spend your day and make money is all up to you. Is your life important? Of course it is. But is it required for a whole movement about your life when you have the choice not to put your life in danger every day? And if you want to be technical, construction workers put their life in danger every day. So I have no sympathy for a movement that is based on something that you can control. You can't control your skin color. You can control your occupation.
Let us know how you really feel.
Strong opinions.
I can see some strong opinions there. I mean, I feel sort of similar. For me, the All Lives Matter movement just bugged me for the simple fact that if all lives matter, why can't we not just agree upon the fact that Black Lives Matter? Like, why are we upset that there's a movement about Black Lives Matter when, as you stated, Black lives were the ones that were being taken? Black people were the ones who were being targeted. Like, yeah, there's some of the videos where we don't see the full of them are blatantly obvious what happened. If we recorded that on World Star or it was on YouTube or something, people would be in prison. But we got people walking free. And then people yelling and upset that a movement has started around an injustice in our country that involves all lives. Because if Black lives are being taken away, once we're gone, who's next? Who's the one taking the lives away? Blue lives matter? Yeah. Because again, all lives matter. But when the people wearing blue are the ones shooting at the people wearing black, sort of hard to see who's really the savage in this situation. The one holding the gun or the one with it pointed at him.
You made one of the greatest points that even though we are talking about Black lives, blue lives, there is the fact that blue lives are taking the life of many Black people as well as white people. They are mistrained. They don't fully understand their actions and why they're doing things. And almost all the cases that are fought by the Black community are cases that could have been avoided. We're not saying that someone wasn't in the wrong, but we're saying they could be avoided. And it came from the lack of training.
Yeah, like if you commit a crime, you're probably going to go to jail. And we get that. But you don't have to die.
Exactly. When you commit a crime, the normal punishment is you are going to jail. You're going to have you're going to have a trial, a fair trial, hopefully. And you'll be locked up for your wrongs. I mean, that's what the natural course, that's what our policing system is meant for. It's not meant to take the lives of people whether they're guilty or not. Their job is to protect people who are not guilty and people who are in harm's way, not to take the life of someone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally called the justice system, meaning that justice is the main thing that this system is predicated upon. And if in our system it states that, as you pointed out, when you commit a crime, you're given a chance to have a fair trial, how is an execution a fair trial? Even if these people committed a crime, because we know whenever something happens, it was always this person's mugshot on TV or this person's rap sheet being discussed. We're not talking about what the person has done, because I'm pretty sure some of these officers have jackets themselves that might be full of misconduct. So we're not talking about what happened in the past. We're talking about that specific instance and what occurred, what went right, what went wrong, and what could have been done better.
And honestly, I'm not going to pinpoint a specific case or go into details about specific cases, but there are quite a few cases where if the person would have waited for backup or went through the proper protocols that are put in place for a reason, the entire death would have been avoided. And that's not just like one case. This is several cases that this happened in. And yes, I agree, blue lives matter, but blue lives should also follow the same rules and protocols that's put in place for a reason that we have to, which is called the law for us. There's a reason why these things exist.
Mm-hmm. Something else exists, though, that we don't like to talk about or admit, and it's that blue wall of silence. That's where I think a lot of the backlash on the Blue Lives Matter is like, I've seen lots of deaths recently where police officers are being targeted, and I feel like the people that murdered them should go to prison just like anybody else. I have sympathy for their families because some of this stuff isn't normal line of duty things. This is just somebody going out and finding the first police officer they see and shooting them. It's tragic. But we discussed this. We put on a full manhunt and investigation. And when this person is caught, they are going to prison.
If they're not killed
we
before.
Have, true. But we have videos of officers literally gunning people down, shooting them in the back while they are running away unarmed. And they are being found not guilty.
It's not just are they being found not guilty, they're not even getting a trial because they're saying it's proper protocol. So there's a difference between being found not guilty and not even being brought in front of a jury. There's a huge difference. And these people are saying that their life is endangered based off the fact that that's their occupation. And again, it's their occupation. Your occupation is your choice. You have a choice to be an officer. You have a choice to go out and serve. And I'm not going to say that it's not an honorable thing to do. But at the same time, I'm going to again say it's a choice. If you don't want your life to be endangered, then don't make that choice. I didn't choose to be the color I am. You judging me and pulling me over based off my skin color is not my choice. From your prejudice or your preconceived ideas of what I am and who I am as a person, that's not my choice at all. But it is your choice to put on that uniform every day and to decide to protect and to decide to shoot at that point. That is your decision.
It is. It's a decision that they make. Split-second decisions can change your entire world. It's like, unfortunately for you, when you put on that uniform, it not only comes with a higher risk of your life being taken or you being in a dangerous situation, it comes with a higher responsibility to the laws that you uphold and represent. You're out here as a representation, a physical force to show what the law is. So you're held to a higher standard because you uphold this very thing as your profession. So when you come out here, it's like, understand that isn't just some shiny new uniform you got and a nice piece to make you feel powerful, because we could talk about the types of people who become police officers, because that's a little bit of this issue. But understand what you actually do, what you mean. If you don't put on the uniform. Don't be surprised when somebody comes after you because you've been abusing and misusing the uniform.
I mean, I'm going to take a step back for a second to a point that you made before that I probably didn't address fully either. And you said about how people are taking police officer lives because they are just police officers, because that's their job. And I do want to go back and say, I mean, I don't think that's right. It's just the same as being judged based off your skin color. When you're judged just because of your occupation and saying that you are that type of person, it is wrong. You're placing someone in a box and they might be the best person out there. And again, like I said, my uncle, he's in the line of duty every day. So again, I do understand, and people do have families and people are actually great people on the inside. You can't judge every book by its cover. With that said, hand in hand, I did want to put at least a couple statistics in here for people so they know. The reason why I think it's such a big issue is from police deaths alone in 2017. So this is this year. This is up until today's statistics. I don't know what happened today, so I can't say today. But from yesterday on, there's been 672 deaths by police officers. Most of them are in brutal ways, and those are not considering things that happen, whether there's an injury they sustained and then after they died. These are just deaths based on the on-the-scene action. Simply. That's outrageous. Now let's go a step further. Let's look at the line of duty. How many deaths have been on the line of duty since the beginning of the year? It's only been 70. That's 10%, roughly. 10%. And most of those deaths weren't what you would expect. Only 26 were from gunfire. One was a stabbing. One was their own fault from drowning. I mean, they were on duty, but there's only been 70 deaths. That's crazy. That's crazy to me that you've used force to kill someone 672 times this year alone. That's about roughly 10 deaths per month so far. Not including if they died afterwards, just on the scene. Now, again, I don't know every situation. Don't know if they were called for or not. But how many of those can we guess were either by accident or it was not completely justified?
That is a very large number of people, considering that we aren't even 7 months into the year.
Yeah.
It's like, for real? You mean to tell me that almost 700 people were violent enough criminals or caught in situations that were life-threatening enough that they were found dead at the scene, or once backup and everything else arrived, they were pronounced dead?
And the thing is,
almost 700.
And I know there are some weird situations where you do need to definitely take someone out. Not going to say there's not. There are situations, unfortunately. But at the same time, how many times can you completely knock someone out without using murder? I'm going to call it murder. Death. You can definitely get someone down and detained without using death.
We should just call it what it is, the new capital punishment.
Virtually. And the thing is, it's one person deciding when this person dies. It's not a whole fair trial and regular citizens like we're supposed to on every single trial. It's one person making that decision for everyone else. And just like we mentioned, the cops have family, these people have family too. Whether they're committing a crime or not, they have families. They have people who love them, who care for them, who try to steer them the right way.
And one of my biggest things, though, is as officers, you are trained in hand-to-hand combat. You are trained with other weaponry and other defense tactics other than using your weapon right away. It's like, and it makes you wonder how many situations, how many times have you seen the videos, how many times have you read the stories, and the first thing that they reach for in a situation is their gun. Why is the first thing that you do is draw your weapon?
And expanding upon that, not just the drawing your weapon part, how much more protected are you than the person that you're going against? There's a reason why you have vest and certain gear, and you have mace. Believe me, mace can just take someone out alone. You have all these other things that you're equipped with to protect you as well as to not utilize your gun.
Makes you wonder, if we go back to the whole point of training, screening of potential officers. Like, I have to say this, and I know some people ain't gonna like it, but I feel like the reason that some of these things happen is that officers are afraid of the very people they're supposed to protect and serve. How can you ever protect somebody that you are afraid of? How can someone who is afraid of the people they are supposed to protect be a police officer? How does that happen?
That's actually a great point. It does. It comes down to screening and training and getting the right people in those positions, because it is a choice, and some people do make the choice because they love to protect and serve, and Other people make it for the wrong decision. So it comes down to the selection process. How can you weed out the bad apples? The people who psychologically is not all the way there to perform the job.
I don't know. I feel like you got to do all these screenings and jump through hoops to teach kindergartners how to finger paint and write their names. But we got people out here who, after years of being on the force, we're going, we look back at their file and actually this person should have never been cleared to be an officer. So we gave somebody who is unstable in their psychology, the pathology of this individual, led us to believe that they would act a certain way. But we still gave them a gun and let them go out here and roam the streets with a badge that makes them feel like they're superior to everybody else they meet that doesn't have one.
Exactly. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. There is one more point I did want to bring it up because I know I get, not just me and my personal opinion when I talk about it, but in general, this is an argument. People always bring up, yeah, that's 672 deaths, but how many people were taken out in gangs just in Chicago? And this is going to be my rebuttal for that. Why are we comparing police officer deaths to gang deaths? That's fundamentally a problem. People get in gangs and they know what the consequences are. You don't go up against an officer knowing what the consequences is going to be death. You think the consequences is going to be arrest or jail time or a free and fair trial. Let me repeat, a free and fair, keyword fair, trial, not to be murdered. So if anyone wants to compare it to gang activities or black on black crimes, that's not the issue. There's white on white crimes too. Have you seen the statistics for white on white crimes? They're just as bad as black on black crimes. Sorry that you hear more news on black and black crimes. So if you want to talk about gang activity, I think why are you relating police officers to people who are meant to protect us as citizens to gang activity, which we already know is bad. Like, there's no question gang activity is a good thing for any society. Why are we comparing the two?
Anybody that talk about gang activity or police activity, it's like, listen, and the amount of black on black crime and all of this, we are called a minority in this country for a reason. It's not a derogatory term that is used to describe people as it has become. It is literally to mathematically mean that there are less of us in this country than the majority. So I asked you, if we are a minority statistically, meaning there are fewer of us here, how would we be responsible for more of this action than the majority? It's mathematically impossible because we don't have the numbers to achieve this statistic. So when you look at the populations and those statistics on crime and things like that, look at the population size that statistic is based on. Look at the dynamics and the diversity in that region. If you're doing a region that is solely African American people or black people, and you talk about how high the crime rate is there, yeah, because you're only looking at that one small region. You're not looking at the larger scale. So I just put it like that to anybody who talks about that activity. There aren't enough of us to outdo it. So
I always say, if you break it down, there was a study that I read, and I don't remember exactly where. If someone wants to go find it, please do. But there's a study that shows that if you actually take the actual number of white on white crimes versus black on black crimes, there's actually more number-wise in cases of white on white crimes and less black on black crimes. When you take the actual percentage, they are just about equal. White on white crimes actually has 1% more than black on black crimes. And this comes down to murder, assault, any type of crime against another, whether it's robbery, burglary, all of it. So in the whole light of things, if you ever want to bring up that, there's still no comparison, because it's the fact that a police officer killing, whether it's a white man, a black man, an Asian man, whatever, you should never be comparing that to gang activity or crimes against one another, because you're committing a crime for a reason. An officer is not, they are essentially committing a crime that they're getting away with. Where's the equality there? I mean, there's not. There's no comparison. So before anyone brings up that comparison or ever leaves anything in the comments for us, I'm just going to combat that with there's no comparison. It's apples and oranges. If you want to talk apples, give me a Granny Smith and a Honeycrisp, not a whole different fruit here.
A Granny Smith and a Honeycrisp. Oh, let's get deep right now. We about to get into all the different types. Somebody bring me a Macintosh.
Honeycrisp are my favorite.
Bring me one of them golden delicious.
This is how we get off topic. I talk about apples. Now that we actually put out our opinions on there, we do want to give some advice about if you do get pulled over, whether you're white, black, Puerto Rican, I don't care what you are. There are some things that we feel like you should at least know. One, your right wise, and two, just in general, like good things to know when getting pulled over, so there's not mishap or something could fatally go wrong. First thing that you would advise.
The first thing I would suggest is, it's my most important one. Make sure everything is legal so you don't get pulled over. If you don't get pulled over, you don't have to worry about what you should and shouldn't do when you do get pulled over. That's step one.
Well, because you mentioned everything being legal, just make sure you have your paperwork, your license is up to date, the whole 9 yards. So say if everything's legal and you get pulled over for a tail light, sometimes you don't know when those go out. Or I have a better one because this is a common one, speeding. I'm going to give you some tips on speeding if you are speeding, which you should do. One, to get out of the ticket, and two, to at least be safe. When you get pulled over, make sure your hands are on the steering wheel at all times. Keep them where they're visible. You can see them, they can see them. Do not reach for anything. Do not unbuckle your seatbelt as well. Keep your seatbelt buckled. Roll down your window. Put both hands on the steering wheel until the officer approaches you and begins to speak to you. Now, this might seem like it's common sense, but it's not. A lot of people unbuckle their seatbelt to grab, whether it's their registration, whatever. Don't do any of that. He hasn't asked for it yet, therefore you don't go and reach for it yet. And not just that, when you unbuckle your seatbelt, if you're in states that have a seatbelt law, you actually automatically get dinged for that because you can't prove to the officer you had it on before they came. That's why you never unbuckle your seatbelt to reach for anything either. Two, if you were speeding, now this is just a little trick that I use and my uncle taught me. Again, he is a police officer. He taught me this at a really young age. It's gotten me out of a lot of speeding tickets. When an officer pulls you over and they ask you, do you know how fast you're going? Never admit that you were doing anything wrong.